Hey there, fellow nerds and geeks. Aaron Pepose here, and welcome to the Hall 8 Show podcast. Ever wonder what would happen if Calvin and Hobbes grew up in Sin City? Writer David Pepose did just that with his comic book Spencer and Locke, which is also co-created and drawn by Jorge Santiago Jr. and published by Action Lab Comics. After reading all 4 issues, I was blown away, and I can't wait for the movie. Oh wait, I was so excited that I kind of jumped the gun. We caught up with David at San Diego Comic-Con 2017, and on this interview, we not only get some great insight behind the development of Spencer and Locke, but we learn what comic books influenced his journey into becoming a writer. We find out he ignored the creative itch for a long time and started writing Spencer and Locke on a dare, and we also discuss some possible actors for the possible Spencer and Locke movie adaptation. Fingers crossed. He also gave some great answers in our Thunder Round. I'm sure glad he scratched that creative itch and that he graciously took time to talk with us at SDCC, because Spencer and Locke is one badass comic book. We hope you enjoy our conversation with David Pepose. Hey, fellow nerds and geeks, Aaron Pepose here, and welcome to the Hall 8 Show podcast. I'm here with our special guest, David Pepose.
Yes.
Okay, and he's the creator or writer?
Yep.
Writer of the comic book Spencer and Locke, which is right here.
Yep.
And he was kind enough to take time out of his busy schedule to talk to us for a few minutes.
Of course.
Maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself. What were you like at 11 years old? What were you into back then as a kid?
Oh man, well, I've always been into comics. That's, I think, been my constant, as a lot of comics writers. Around when I was 11, I discovered Frank Miller, particularly Daredevil, The Man Without Fear, Batman: The Dark Knight Returns, Batman Year One, and as a kid, that really blew me away. That made me kind of realize, authors write these books. It's they're not just made by committee, and so that was really kind of a thing for me. As an 11-year-old, grew up in the Midwest, didn't go to the coasts until I was in college, so, just kind of grew up in a more kind of down-to-earth kind of city, I guess.
Okay. Were you always creative, even at a young age? Well,
I think I kind of struggled against it for a while. I would kind of do fits and spurts of creativity. I wrote a play in high school. I directed in college. But I think there was always part of me that said, you need to be more realistic. You need to do something that can be a 9-to-5 that will give you a job. So I worked as a reporter out of college for a while. I covered cops and courts and state politics. But I still always had that creative itch. And I wound up jumping to publishing, and very quickly thereafter jumping to television. And through it all, I wasn't doing anything really creative in any of those industries.
Right.
So I kind of wrote this on a dare, really. I wrote it in my off hours. I liked the script. I found an artist, loved the art, and then we said, well, we'll pitch it around and see what happens. And thankfully, here we are.
I guess before we get into the book, I just want to sort of delve a little bit into how you got to this point.
Sure.
Can you tell us a little bit about your creative journey that led up to Spencer and Locke?
So my creative journey, I can't say it's a public one. It's one that I wrote a lot of terrible scripts that will never see the light of day.
Okay.
And that's really, there's no deep secret to other than that, is that I wrote reviews over at Newsarama for many years, and I kind of learned a little bit about how to break down story through that. Mm-hmm. I interned at DC Comics in college, and that was also a really great learning experience, like the production of comics. But really, at the end of the day, it kind of came down to just writing really sucky scripts and just learning from them. And so I would write just short scripts every day, and I'd did it for like 3 months, and then once I felt comfortable with that, then I could say I could do single issues. And once I felt comfortable with that, then I started branching out into things like TV pilots or screenplays. Nothing that saw the light of day. And then finally, once that was all done, I said, okay, I'm going to try my hand at a miniseries, and this was it.
So this was the first stab at sequential art or comic books?
I did some short comic scripts. Comics have always been my first love. I like the rules of them. I like the constraints of it. You have 20 pages, and you can only fit however much in 20 pages. And how can you pace that out? And what's the rhythm of it? And what's the visuals of it? And the more rules you give me, the better off I am. I think if you give me too much rope, I'll hang myself. So Spencer and Locke was really great because I was able to sort of play into certain expectations of what people would associate a Calvin and Hobbes style story, right. And then we could either lean into it or subvert that, depending on how we needed the story to go.
Well, let's get into Spencer and Locke and the whole, I guess, sort of inspiration you got from Calvin and Hobbes.
Yeah, well, our elevator pitch for Spencer and Locke, for those who haven't read it, it's what if Calvin and Hobbes grew up in Sin City? It's about a hard-boiled cop who comes back to his old neighborhood to investigate the murder of his childhood sweetheart. And his partner happens to be his talking imaginary panther, Spencer. Spencer's right here. He joined us for this convention. Okay. A lot of this came from when I said, what's my first comic going to be? People say, write what you know. And I don't know about you. I felt like I didn't really know a whole lot except comics. Okay. So I felt, like I said before, classic Frank Miller was a huge influence on me. And I kind of wanted to do something in that vein because I feel like the man's forgotten more how to make comics than I'll ever know. Mm-hmm. And I thought, what could we do for a children's property? Kind of like take a new spin, a new angle on that by aging it up. And the problem with that kind of thinking is that 9 times out of 10, it's just shock value, and there's no legs to move on it. And I think you can hook people in by shocking them once, maybe twice, before they start getting mad at you. Okay. But then I thought about Calvin and Hobbes, and there's really no more sacred cow in comics than Calvin and Hobbes. Yeah. But there's always something very sinister about that to me. My siblings and I have about a 10-year age gap between us, so I know what it was like to be an only child. And I never hallucinated a best friend. So I always thought there was something very weird about that, and something not quite right. And I remember reading a comic on Reddit where Calvin was put on Ritalin, and he stopped seeing Hobbes. And I laughed, and then I realized, maybe that's the thing. And so as I thought about it, I thought, what could cause somebody to have to hallucinate a best friend, and what would they look like as an adult? Okay. And then that's sort of how these two great tastes kind of came together for us.
Wow. And how did you arrive at the names, Spencer and Locke?
A lot of it, first and foremost, it all comes down to sound. I go through names all the time. Anytime I write something, to think, how does it sound? Can I picture a character saying this? How does it read? But also, they're named after philosophers, Herbert Spencer and John Locke. And part of that was dumb luck, and part of it was their philosophies really do represent the characters. Herbert Spencer came up with the phrase "survival of the fittest," which we have Spencer saying in our first issue. Okay. And Locke is talking about sort of how experiences shape who you are, and that is very much this character. Okay. So that's sort of how the characters came. And also, Spencer, to me, it sounds like a very cuddly, warm name, and Locke sounds like very hard and tough, and it's very much, I think, fitting for both of the characters.
Oh, okay. I noticed when you have 4 issues in total so far?
Yes.
Is that the total arc, or what?
Yes. Okay. We wanted to make sure this was self-contained. This is Jorge and I's first book. Mm-hmm. We wanted to make sure that if we crashed and burned, we would do it in a very limited space. But so far the reaction has been phenomenal. We've been getting a lot of love from the press, retailers, fans. We just got optioned for a film, which is fantastic.
Congratulations!
Thank you. So I think if we're still kind of dotting our I's and crossing our T's, but if the reaction is any indication, I would not be surprised if we saw more Spencer and Locke sometime in the future.
Cool. And when did you initially start trying to create Spencer and Locke?
So the actual idea came to me September of 2014.
That's kind of relatively recent.
I found the notes for it, and the script came very quickly. Okay. I think this is the fastest thing I've ever written by far. The first script I wrote in a week, and the treatment I wrote in another week. The pitch took a long time for us to get to. And that's in part, art takes a long time to do. And when you're as good as Jorge Santiago Jr., my artist and co-creator, you want him to take whatever time he needs. Yeah. But also, we went through a string of colorists before we found Jason Smith. Okay. And Jason, again, they say good things come to those who wait. Yeah. Jason is the thing that came to us when we waited. He's so dynamite. And so it took us a long time to get our pitch together to a place that I felt comfortable shopping it around. Mm-hmm. And even then, we then got rejected a billion times until Action Lab was kind of gutsy enough to take us on. Okay. And they really saw the value in our book, and I couldn't be more grateful to them.
So after you were successfully able to pitch it to Action Labs, how soon after that did you start looking to get an option for a movie?
So we had people approaching us around when the first issue came out. Okay. I mean, really, it's a testament to our friends in the press that we broke our story in the Hollywood Reporter, and I think that got a lot of eyes on us. And IGN did one of our first reviews, and they were fantastic as well. And with all that, we had producers. Producers are always looking for the hot new thing, and we're working with Adrian Iscaria from Prime Universe Films. He's the producer of the Hitman franchise. Okay. And the thing that really struck me about him is he was so passionate about the source material, but the thing that he was so respectful of our tone. And I think our tone is really what makes Spencer and Locke Spencer and Locke. Once you take away the flashbacks, once you take away the iconography, it's all about tone and the message that we're trying to put out there. And the fact that Adrian respected that so much and wanted to stay true to that, it was a no-brainer for us. I feel like he was the right guy to go with.
Who would you want to play Spencer and Locke?
Oh, man. My girlfriend has said that she wants Jake Gyllenhaal to play Locke, but if that's the case, I'm not letting her on set.
Well, the reason I ask is you said Hitman, maybe Timothy Oliphant or,
Hey, listen, if you're watching, I would not say no, man. I mean, Idris Elba playing Spencer, although if they made him Spencer, they wouldn't let me on the set. So,
Is he your man crush?
Yeah, he's definitely my man crush. If you're watching, Idris. But yeah, I feel like right now we're very early on in the process, and we really only signed with Adrian only a couple of weeks ago, and but I'm really excited because I feel like already just even based on our preliminary conversations, Adrian gets it, and some of the things that we've been discussing have been really cool so far, and this is just the beginning. We've got a little while to sort of get the ball rolling on this, and so far I couldn't be happier.
Cool. Obviously, you found some success with your project. Do you have any advice out there to people out there who's trying to do the same thing?
Oh, well, I guess, the first big advice is just if you're a writer, get a good artist. I know that seems like simple, but art is way more important than anything you could write. And if it doesn't look good, your book won't get picked up. It's just... But I think the other thing is making sure that you have a pitch that you can sum up pretty quickly and say, this is why you should care. Us saying Calvin and Hobbes meets Sin City, that's an instant. People know exactly what you're talking about. Right. And so I feel like, and I've been working on that. I feel like I'm never going to get a log line that good again. But it's definitely been like a good learning experience. And then just don't get discouraged. You will get rejected probably. It's okay. It happens. I have a stack of rejection letters, and just keep going. And if you really believe in the book, don't let a publisher tell you what you can and can't do. Okay. If you need to do it on your own, Kickstarter it, just get it out there. Ultimately, you are the one that knows the most about your work and whether or not it's worth pursuing. And if you feel passionate about it, do it.
Okay. Cool.
That's my advice.
Awesome. That's good advice. We usually have a round called the Thunder Round.
Okay.
We ask sort of off the beaten path set of questions.
All right, hit me.
You ready? All right. If we gave you $1 million, what would you do with it? But you would have to spend it all in one day.
I'd pay a bunch of artists right now to get started on like 12 different pitches.
Okay. All right. If you were a mutant and you could teleport anywhere in the world, where would you go and why did you pick that place?
Would it be possible to teleport to work?
Yeah,
Save me the commute.
That's something that I wish I could do too. What 3 movies could you watch over and over and not get tired of it?
Memento, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and Avengers.
Okay. What's one piece of advice you could give to your 11-year-old self?
It's all worth it.
It's all worth it?
It's all worth it.
What's one thing that your fans would be surprised to know about you?
My favorite karaoke song is "Kiss from a Rose."
Oh, okay. There you go. We're gonna go karaoke sometime.
Yeah.
This is the last one for the fun round. What superhero or villain best represents you?
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man?
To a T. With great power comes great responsibility.
All right, that's a good one. We also have a round in here called the Art Watch, where we sort of artists that we follow online.
Yeah.
Since we're all about trying to promote creativity within the pop culture world. So, are there any artists out there that you want to sort of?
Absolutely. Well, listen, I could not do this without giving a shout out to Jorge Santiago Jr. You can find him on Twitter. It's just Jorge Santiago Jr. He's the artist on Spencer and Locke. He's fantastic. You should also look up Joe Mulvey, who did some of our variants. Mon House, Maan House. Ben Torres, the artist on Kingpin.
Okay.
Those are definitely some people that I would give a shout out to. Gavin Guidry is another up and comer who is fantastic. Mm-hmm. Those are some of the names that pop up to me right now.
Cool. We'll definitely put those on the show notes.
Yeah.
And we're gonna sort of flash forward a little bit. What's next for Spencer and Locke? Obviously, you got the option that you're probably gonna be working on next.
Yeah. Well, we're dotting our I's and crossing our T's.
Yeah.
But I think if the reaction that we've gotten so far is any indication, I'm feeling very hopeful that we will get greenlit for a sequel.
Okay.
Which would be fantastic. We're
fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. We always want to make sure that we don't overstay our welcome. Right. And, our book can be very polarizing. And so we want to make sure that everyone feels pretty good about it once it's all said and done.
Cool.
Just more pitches. I've got a dozen log lines in various stages of development. And I'm very excited to start kind of showing them off to the world. I hope that this book is just the first of many.
How do you stay sort of organized with the creative side and the business side?
I tend to portion off the time that I think is necessary for it. So, for example, if there isn't anything pressing in terms of marketing the book or publicizing the book, I can usually kind of put that a little bit more on autopilot. I can preset some tweets, I can preset some Facebook statuses. Whereas the week before the book comes out, the week after the book comes out, you got to be like on the ball. And so I do less writing during that time. And so it's really just kind of trying to budget out the time for what needs to be done right now versus what can wait a little while longer.
All right, cool. Is there anything else that you want to talk about that you feel that we missed?
No, well, I just want to thank everybody. Everybody who's read the book, all the retailers who've pushed this book, all the press that have talked about this book. Yeah. I mean, we're a small publisher, and I have no illusions about that. And Jorge and I are no-name creators. This is our first books. The fact that this book has done so well, it's a team effort, and everybody who's read this book has really kind of stepped up and rallied around us. Yeah. And as somebody who started as an intern, became a comics journalist, now as a writer, I couldn't be more grateful to everybody. I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to picking it up this weekend and checking it out.
Well, thank you so much.
Where can people find you online?
Sure, people can find me. My Twitter account is Pepose. It's just my last name, first initial. You can also follow Spencer and Locke on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. It's just Spencer and Locke, one word, and is spelled out. And we post every day, so don't miss out.
Cool. Well, thank you for your time.
Of course, thank you.
Good meeting you.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for listening to the Hall H Show podcast. Our mission is to put the mainstream Hall H spotlight on artists, writers, and other creatives. We especially love emerging talent and people we think deserve more exposure, like writer David Pepose. As Artist Alley evangelists, we encourage you to please visit Artist Alley at all the conventions you plan on going to this year. Speaking of conventions, please make sure you are continuing to be SDCC fit for the long con season ahead. Join in on the fun by following the SDCC Fit movement online on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. If you are listening to us on Google Play, iTunes, or Stitcher, we would appreciate a rating and a comment. We are always looking for interesting guests to have on the show, so if you have any suggestions, please reach out to us on social media using the hashtag HallHShow. Are you an artist wanting to promote your Kickstarter campaign for an upcoming project? Let us know. Peace, cheers, and artists assemble.